Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Anchor live stream with our intrepid Go developers working on important software for all of you. And that includes our wonderful participants here. We have Will and Keith and Chris, who is hidden because he has the lurgy and needs to keep away from webcams. Thus, he might spread what's going on. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm clearly tired. This is us. We're Anchor. We are a team of developers working on open source software. You may recognize Syft and Grype. I only recently realized that that's their names, the little mascots. Is that the case? They're the actual names? Today I learned. Syft the owl and Grype the monster, alien. Grype monster. Okay, yes, I'll allow it. Super. And all our stuff is over on GitHub. If you go to the Anchor organization on GitHub, you'll find all our repositories under there. And that includes Syft and Grype, but a whole bunch of other stuff as well. You'll also find us on Discourse. If you go to anchor.com/discourse, you'll find this. And I create a post in the announcements category every time for one of these. So you've got links to get to the video. So if you just visit here and sign up, then you'll get a notification when that kind of stuff is going live, including today. What we usually talk about is whatever stuff needs our attention across the open source world of Anchor. And then any questions that come up. There is actually a suggestion further down here. I'll bring you that in just a moment. But does anyone have anything we need to talk about before we dive straight into our work? Cool. So we had some issues that were marked needs discussion. They're somewhere here. And I'm pretty convinced we've looked at most of these already on previous weeks. So we can buzz through them quickly. It might be easier to just go straight to the web page, actually. There we go. So this, I think we've discussed before, have we not, about scanning file systems without building an index, or is this not? Yes, we
talked about this last week, where Alex gave a really good answer about why and why we do the indexing in the first pass, and what a solution it could be if we were to go the route of providing options for not indexing it.
Okay. So this one doesn't need further discussion from us this week, I imagine.
Nope.
I mean, there is a question.
Right now, I don't think so. I think we're okay on this one.
Sweet. Okay. That was easy. That was the only one in Syft. We got a few in Grype. Where do you want to start? Top, middle, or bottom?
Top.
Top. Okay. Detect end-of-life packages and distros. Ooh, this is an interesting one. So we don't currently do that. And this might be interesting. So this is a suggestion from the community. There are lists of end-of-life distros. This kind of thing happens with, fast-moving distros that only live for 6 months or something, and packages that are end-of-life as well. A reply from Will 3 days ago there. Oh.
This EOL dataset. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's not at like a package level. Oh yeah, perfect. If you look at the left-hand column, basically the dataset is not really indexed. It's just on a per whatever people want to submit basis. You can see you've got some Java projects matched in with stuff like anti-Linux. At the top, there's like an Angular JS. Now you see some Apple ecosystems. But if you What's really nice about this is if you find maybe go to like CentOS, they might have a Perl at the bottom, but just click click the CentOS image and then scroll a bit. They should and then show product identifiers. There's a little arrow under
Mm.
that. They generate CPEs sometimes, but sometimes the authors are really nice and they submit PURLs for the entry. So it would be a case of if we were to bring this data set as like a new table um, in the Grype output, obviously this is like past V6, but this table would then be speaking the same language as far as identifiers as the packages that get submitted to Grype via the SBOM. You could match the PURLs up, do some select business logic of does this you see the latest candidate release over there. Does this release number and this PRL match the thing that I found? Okay, we can then warn the user. It's not vulnerable. It's just no one's supporting it. No one's touched it. So no vulnerabilities have been filed or looked against it, but you want to probably upgrade to one that's being supported.
And how common are these, like the product identifiers? Are they like if I pick any random one, am I likely if I pick like a Ubuntu or something if it's in it?
I don't know. Let's keep clicking through. I clicked like 3 or 4 the other day when I was looking at this on Monday. Yeah, I think Ubuntu had a lot. So for package, yep, show product identifiers. Also the same thing, just the CPs for the release. Oh, nice.
And they have
And
a
so,
JSON you can yoink. Okay.
yeah, and Keith linked a project that was using this. And what's interesting about this project that was linked in our Zoom chat called XEOL, that's actually a fork of Syft. So XEOL, if you scroll to the bottom, you can see an interface. Yeah, watch the GIF. It's pretty sweet. Looks very familiar. Yeah, and they did some kind of separate work on this before. Um, but the idea being that I think this is no longer supported, or it's no longer, it's kind of also EO lifed a little bit. There's
Sorry,
some
the
active
irony of that
development.
is delicious. I like that.
Well, I see there's been 2 weeks ago some activity, but
Oh, to
the
bump
issue
the
that
version of Syft.
yeah, I think it's just like kind of in stasis or maintenance mode, and so Si- not Syft doing this, right? Because we wouldn't want this to be in Syft, I think, but that's an open question. But Grype having a separate section of we have a list of vulnerabilities, and now also here's a list of packages that we found that are end of life that match the PRL, the CPEs for the packages submitted. That would be an increased kind of vision for the user who's trying to get a lay of the land of what's vulnerable and what needs to be updated for the thing that they're scanning.
Yeah, exactly. And so like we'd need some sort of data set for something. And since Grype already, I think Grype would be a much more appropriate place to include this since we're already, sending the vulnerability data set around for that, if we wanted to include it somewhere.
Nice.
What are people's thoughts about adding like an extra table onto Grype in this way, like post V6 or during V6 development?
Well, having talked with Alex just recently about the plans for V6, it sounds like the V6 schema would work pretty well to add additional tables for this type of thing. So I think that's like part of the design is that there are some other things like maybe the Kev data or something that we'd like to probably include at some point. So yeah, I'm all for it. I think that it's a like this particular thing, knowing something's end of life, and if it has vulnerabilities or not. I think be a great addition to Grype personally.
Do you know how up to date this data is? Is it is this the GitHub for the data, or is that GitHub for this page? I don't know. Oh, yeah, that's the page, isn't it? I just wondered, like, is this programmatically sourced, or is it like a wiki that people maintain, or? Is this the data that you would pull then, this end of life data? That's what you would be, taken and then mashed and then put in a table in a future version of GrypeDB, right?
Yeah, exactly. And also, if you go to the top, there's an API that they have, so you don't even have to fetch it. yeah, you can fetch through these endpoints right here. You can get all details about everything.
Nice.
You just do all products, enumerate products against get all details, and then you have the set, and you can put it as part of our builder, our nightly build.
Does the API return like a good package correlator, like a Perl or something? I don't see that in the example.
Under the details? Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah.
Maybe the single cycle details. If you go down to the other endpoint on the left there, Alan.
All I see is latest, and I see the link. Yeah, it's interesting that they include the identifiers on the page, but not as part of the all details portion.
I wonder if that's something they mean to do, or if it's something that like. I think we'd be interested in using it, but our hard requirement is that there's something we can parse as a package identifier, like a Perl, ideally a Perl, and not like some other format that we can correlate to our own packages table, because we're already going to have like a table of all the packages we have vulnerabilities for in the V6 database. And I think, I wonder if that API, if that's like a toy page or something. I don't know. It's sort of surprising because they have product identifiers there.
I know. Well, when I click, so what's interesting is that on any, you can click that API CentOS.json, and that'll take you to the actual response below the GitHub link. And that's, there's no identifiers in that as well. So it might be a case where we'd have to, I don't want to suggest changes. I just want to look at these are all markdown files. If I click this markdown file and I read the raw.
Where's their, is this the whole thing on, this is the documentation, but the actual source database? This is just a rendering of this. Where's the actual data behind this?
If you go back to the CentOS package that you had, and then you click the GitHub on this page, click improvement. It's going to yell at you about forking, but don't worry about that. Click products. Yep. And then just scroll down to find CentOS. And the data's in this markdown format. And then you can click raw on the right, bottom, below your mouse. Up.
Yeah, it's
raw.
You're in the way.
I know. I can't see the Zoom output. And so that's where all this is.
I think there might be it looks like there's a if you look at the end of life.data repository, they have like a bunch of products, but then there's also an underscore data directory in the root of that repository, which is a submodule of a different thing.
Release data. Yeah.
And so I think this is where you can put in, I guess these are like automatically scripts. So this isn't a source. Anyway, I think that there might be going on something more than just than committing the markdown. But maybe to use this, we really would be looking for pearls in the markdown.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if their GitHub Actions have anything that like transforms that markdown data to render their API or put it in their JSON, because then it would just go ahead.
Or maybe writes it, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it could be that too.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was figured would be happening, but
like if they're already doing the transformation for us, right? Then we just contribute hey, can we get these identifiers as part of the JSON object response and do a small like minor version bump? Like that'd be a nice contribution to them and something that we could consume on our end.
I put a link in there. It looks like that release data does have some, a bunch of JSON files that has versions and then date for the EOL, it seems.
Sorry, did you post a link somewhere?
In the Zoom chat.
Cool, thanks. Okay. And how is this generated? Oh, this is a bot that made this.
Right. I assume this is probably the source data that they're using to generate the other stuff, but I'm a little confused how this would work in Grype. So, I mean, like an example is that 3.8, right? Like, what does that mean? Like, how do I know that 3.8 is end of life? I mean, because I mean, is there supposed to be like a 3.8.1 and then like that whole line stops? But like, I don't know. It's a little confusing to me how we would know. I mean, we could obviously like match exact versions of things and, say like, oh, well, this
What do you
version
think?
is.
Are you thinking what the remedial steps we'd recommend are? Like, okay, now you know it's end of life. What do you do? Like, or are you thinking, like, why does it matter if it's 3.8.2? If we detect version 3.8 and that's the end of life, then, and we are past that date, then.
Well, like the tools don't really have any notion of like release product lines. Like, you know what I mean? Like what this is saying is like this release product line is end of life, right? And we're not going to do any more releases of this, but we don't have any notion of that specifically. Right. So like a 3.8.1, if we were doing like just a simple comparison, would be okay potentially because it's after 3.8. You know what I mean?
I'm just looking for one that I recognize. Okay. So, yeah, right. So in this case, we've got a 2404, the latest LTS. There will be a 2404.1 probably arriving here tomorrow because it was just released today. But you've got the point releases. 2204. Oh, they're in date order, aren't they? Or are they?
Right.
2204.2 and there's 23. Yeah, okay.
So this is actually a really good example. So let's say just for argument's sake that there's a LTS version like 20.004. Okay. And let's, for argument's sake, let's say there's an LTS version which is not end of life. But then we have some numbers in here for things that are end of life, which are higher versions. Right? Like so.
But that's to be expected.
Is end of life, right? But what I'm confused about is like, how would we actually match that? Right? Like, how would I know that something earlier than 22 is not end of life, but 22 is end of life?
I think we would just do. I think we would end up wanting to do like an exact match, like not a version range, because people like with vulnerabilities, there's a presumption that you compare versions, right? Because the vulnerability is introduced in some release version and fixed in some release version, and everything in between is presumed to have the vulnerability. But this is like, Canonical have told us that the end of life date for Ubuntu 20.04.1 is, August 6th, 2020. And so then if we get a miss on this, then we just have a version of Ubuntu we don't have an end of life date for. But I don't think we try to compare it because there's no presumption that like these things get end of life in the same version, in the same order they get released. So I think we just do an exact match with no less than greater than. Does that answer your question, Keith?
Yeah. I think you're right.
Right. Interesting. But yeah, it's just an exact match, isn't it? Because you like that one went out of support in April, then that one in August, and then that one in February the next year as those point releases come out. In fact, the end of life date had the thing at the top, which, oh man, I haven't got it anymore, have I? just to complete the circle, somewhere here, there's the release diagram, where you can see that they're released. This is 2004, so that's that one there. So that one went out of date in, here, and then the next one here, and then the next one here, and over time.
Yeah. One of the other things that's interesting about this is that it is for the most part not packages, right? Like a lot of these are like distros or like big giant things, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like Apache Foundation products that are not that's not like, we're usually, when we have a package, we mean like, a jar, a Rust crate. And so some of these
it's not
and I guess
granular,
Python,
is it? Right?
What's that?
It's not very granular, but it is in some cases, but not in others.
Well,
like
yeah. And I think, and this might be interesting to just say, like, yeah, and we are trying to take a swing at the same information because we already report like fixed state on vulnerabilities. Like, is there a fix available? And so we could try to use this, like, it's like, okay, PHP 8.0 has been end of life for a year and there's no fix for this CVE. So we can safely report that as won't fix because no one's working on it anymore. That might be interesting.
And this one, following on from that example, you've got 8.1 and they suggest 8129. And I guess, is that in the JSON? Like, does it present, where's 8.1? Yeah. So in this case, it actually suggests, like, if you're on 8.1, then the recommendation is you bump to 8129, right? But surely that means you would have to detect not just 8.1, you'd have to detect any version between 8.1 and 8129, going back to Keith's question about it not necessarily being an explicit version. It might be a range of versions.
Right. Well, and I think that's the thing, is that like PHP have chosen that they have like cycles around what look like minor semvers, right? Like X point Y. And there's no reason to suppose that other packages also do that, right? Like there might be, right, there might not be. I mean, that might be a common pattern, because I think maybe Go does that too, right? Where like, Go 1.20 will get security patches until X date. And like, if you're using Go 1.20, you should be on 1.20 point latest patch. But
yeah, maybe we
yeah,
do
so
it.
this is kind of interesting, but I think Keith was really onto something. Like, we need to model like cycle strategies, basically, like, and like Ubuntu is probably a once-off one because they really like 0.04 for some reason. But like PHP, and maybe PHP and Go and like Perl here looks like they're kind of using the same, like a minor release is supported for N months and you should be on the latest patch of it.
Yeah.
It's pretty complicated. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, I think, I think that like a partial match, I mean, because it does give you the line, and each of that is like a part of the version, right? So like you said, like major and minor, excluding the patch, and like all of those seem to be considered part of that line.
This feels like needs research. It's certainly an enhancement. I'm not sure there's specific discussion we need to have around this, other than someone needs to like decide the priority of this, and I guess it's after GrypeDB 6, right?
I think they'll definitely be after GrypeDB 6, and I feel a little bad. I think we've told this contributor, this thing you want will come after GrypeDB V6 more than once.
We have a large pile of when that dam breaks of work we have to do.
Right.
Yeah, well, I think like from a gardening standpoint, I mean, I think we're all head nodding that this sounds like a good thing we'd like to add. And so we could probably stick this at least in the backlog, even though we don't have like the exact next steps. And definitely, yeah, maybe like tag it with a needs investigation along with it.
Oh man, can someone else do that? Because I can't get to my buttons. They're behind you.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Thank you. So that was the first one of the three. What do we want? Middle or bottom?
We talked about filter out by severity a lot. I think we're on track for just doing that. And then Syft configuration for Grype we read at the end of the last Thursday. So I think we can just spin the wheel and find some random ones that need to be touched up or looked at.
Are there other repos? Like that was one of the things I kind of wanted to bring up, and I wasn't sure where. Is like we have Syft and Grype, but there's needs discussion. It might be worth having like little links to the pre-filtered issues also for like Funnel and GrypeDB and Yardstick and Grant, and
Yeah,
I can make some links for those real quick.
So interestingly, I actually do have the data for all of them. I think, just because I scan all of the repositories. It's 29th today, isn't it? And so if there are any, I think I actually have it open here. Yeah. So there's one in Quill, there's one in GrypeDB, 3 in Grype, and 1 in Syft. So if you want to pick one of these, we can go for it, that are outside the ones we've just looked at.
I don't remember whether we talked about why we exclude hardware and OS data in GrypeDB. I don't remember whether we've talked about that. It might be a short discussion, but
Yeah.
I think the short answer is the database is really big and Grype isn't interested in hardware.
Well, I think that's absolutely it, is that Grype will never match because we don't detect hardware. Right. So that's the gist, I think, of why we've excluded it. Although theoretically we could get an SBOM that has that and potentially match things, but I'm pretty sure that's exactly the reason, like you said.
I think what might make sense then, if we did anything here, if this user wanted to like sort of run their own Funnel and GrypeDB pipeline and turn them on, we could give them some guidance on how to, but I don't think it's ever going to be in the official GrypeDB build. So it doesn't sound like we need to really discuss it a lot. It just seemed like I put the needs discussion on it because I didn't feel like we'd sort of answered the person, but we can go back and say like, you know, Grype is interested in scanning software and it downloads the database at runtime, and that's a real thing users wait for. So we're not going to make the database a lot bigger with stuff that we will never match on. But here are some pointers if you want to run a fork of our data ETL job. I think that would be a reasonable thing to say. Do you all agree?
Is there any plan in Grype 6 to, sorry, do we call it Grype DB6 or just DB6?
I think we call it GrypeDB schema v6 just because we needed more syllables in there. But
of course, I'll just call it 6. Is there any discussion about splitting or sharding the database by some category, and would software and hardware be a category? Is that not a thing?
So we've explicitly punted sharding the database to v7. Okay. Because v6 is already starting to feel like a boil the ocean project. And the v6 schema is much more compressible. So we expect the download payload to shrink by about half when we go to v6. And then eventually, I think in v7 we would like to split out, like there's a lot of NVD rows, but a lot of times that matches off by default. You know, there's like 1.5 million rows for SUSE Linux in there, which is probably not what you're scanning. It might be what you're scanning, but if it's not what you're scanning, it's a bunch of bytes over the wire that aren't doing you any good. So like we definitely want to do that sharding, but I think we've decided to not do it in v6. And it sounds like this person added, yeah, you cloned this repository, and like I think it might make sense to just say like it sounds like they already forked it and got it running, and I think we could just invite them to continue down that path because hardware is out of scope for us. I think that's a reasonable way to close this out, and we can talk about something else at the meeting. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yeah, thumbs up to that.
Okay, awesome.
Are you taking hold of that?
Yeah, I can do that.
Sweet, thank you. So there was a quill issue. Oh, that went to a completely different window. Why did that happen? Where's my browser gone? There it is. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm having browser issues. Do you want to have a look at Quill?
And I feel like we've talked about this one then, perhaps, unless I'm getting it confused.
July. Oh gosh. Sorry. Let's just skip to the bottom. 2 weeks ago. Oh, this was the LFS thing, wasn't it? Do you remember this? I think we did talk about this briefly.
Yeah. We can probably skip this one. There's not really a lot that we can do at the moment. And I don't actually think it's even a problem. It's like just one person who's having the problem.
With a weird file system issue.
Yeah, Carlos, who's the maintainer of GoReleaser, it looks like he confirmed that the checksum is correct for both his fixture path and when he runs the Go Matadi and Go toolchain. Go version that. In my case, everything installed with Nixer and both OS, and everything's fine. That was from 2 weeks ago. I think we can close this. I'm reading more. Get clone, go build, verifying, get some security error.
It looks like they're closed their own issue. So we might get, if we go read Go Releaser 5069, we might get confirmation that we can close this. They might have said like, we were using Quill wrong or something.
TW Payne also said he could not reproduce it. And I just ran.
So the original bug reporter closed it as.
Yeah.
Closing
Okay.
because they can't reproduce it.
I think it makes sense for us to follow suit, right? Because we just had a bug based on this report. So
yeah.
Sweet.
Cool.
Shall I close that? Boom. There were a couple of issues mentioned by Tim. That one, I think we've just talked about, haven't we? Capability to detect end of life.
Yep.
Was that one?
Yep.
Yes.
That was what we led off with.
And then squashed all layers. This pull request.
Syft 3138.
I looked at this one earlier, and I don't think that we necessarily want this one as it is. But I think that the gist of what he's trying to do is to find the layer that a package was first introduced on. And this has been an ask that a number of people have had, I think, over the years. But I'm not convinced that the solution here is the best one.
It sounds like they're open to improving this DR if we can explain what they need to do. I mean, is this maybe a Sorry,
Is it a
there's
case
a lot
of?
of background noise here, so I had to suddenly mute.
No, you're good.
But
Okay. So the question is, is it something that it needs like completely re-architecting, or is it just here are some hints and direction, and they can go away and revise what's how you?
well, and the question I was sort of asking is this the right venue for what amounts to a code review? That was actually the question I was trying to ask when I had to suddenly mute. But your question's a good one too.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we do a code review right now, but they are asking for some direction, and if the direction is we almost certainly wouldn't land this if you did work on it, then that's one direction. If the other direction is here are some tips that would point you in the right direction, and we probably would be amenable to it. I think they're just looking for a pointer, really.
I mean, I can take this one offline and see if, like, do a more thorough inspection, see if there's something else. I mean, we've talked about a number of things in the past of other solutions for this. I mean, things like potentially just ordering the layers that you have so you can like easily do an all layers scan and then get the first one. And then there's not really any need to add another scope that somebody might, use for just that one purpose. And but I'll take this one. I don't think we need to do a code review here.
Sweet, thank you for that. So someone popped a link, and it was Grype DB. Was it that one? Is that the only one that?
Yeah, I put a link just to the Grype DB search for the needs discussion labels, I think, in the chat.
Okay.
And it's just the same thing. Yeah.
So
and I think
in the future, I'll tweak this template and put a little bulleted list. Might even be able to put some numbers on there as well, so we know which ones have actually got stuff in them. I'll figure that out. It's probably automatable as well, which would be quite nice, and maybe even just paste the link of the ones that'd be a good idea. I'll make a note of that. Thank you. So
do we have a comment on today's? Sorry, it looks like
that was the one from Tim.
Oh, okay.
Asking those two, and I said, yeah, we'll take a look.
Oh, perfect.
Sweet. What do you want to do now? Roll the dice? What do you want to do?
Spin that wheel.
Spin the wheel. Okay. Where are we? Bug roulette. So I'll just run bug roulette. Any particular repo? Syft or Grype, or one of the others?
Whatever your heart desires, Alan.
My heart is I love them all. I can't possibly pick one as a favorite child, but I'm going to. Random community question, community PR. Oh, this is in stereoscope.
Pull request in stereoscope from read Docker host socket location.
Why did it pick stereoscope when I asked for Syft? That's weird.
Reading Docker socket host location from current Docker context. Oh, it needs more worker tests. Okay.
Oh, it's a PR anyway.
What is he trying to do?
We don't generally do PRs on this.
Yeah, we can't. We're not going to do a code review for this.
Okay.
Maybe we should update the script to just do the issues.
Yeah, it's just because I clicked the wrong place, because I clicked on the PR bit and not the community issue bit.
Nice.
JSON value.
value. Assign this one to me.
Okay.
I have to do an update for the YAML, and that will fill the end of my day with this one.
Nice. That was easy. Good work.
Thank you.
Right. Should we run the bug redatatron again? Ooh. Scan action. Have we discussed this one before? We've talked about the file name. Yes, I think we did, didn't we?
We did.
Oh.
And there is a PR for this right now.
That was an easy discussion. Thanks, Keith.
Yeah. And Will, there you go. Bop.
Oh, it looks like Kazanta replied to Will at the last. Yeah. Will, you're not working on anything, right? You don't have 50 reactionary things that have come up this week.
Oh dear, sorry guys.
Yeah, I had a question on there, but we can do that offline.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like I still had a thing to do there, so that's why it's sitting.
Cool. Just ping me when you want to re-review or if you want to sync on it or something.
Okay. There's another stereoscope one.
Ooh, this one's fun. Yeah. Let me open this. I remember working on this at one point.
Oh, is there a PR attached? Yes.
Manifest. Processed manifest. Range indexing. Buffer nil. Buffer match. So we do have support for multiple manifests in the sense that if the consumer of Syft, and moving downstream from that, consuming stereoscope, knows the platform that they're targeting and passes that to the command, then we know which manifest to select. I'll link the code of where it does that. But basically, for the manifest decoding.platform, they have to ask for it. And then if that string matches one of the manifests when you iterate across all of them in the index, we'll return that one up for the image to be scanned. I don't know if that's the core of this issue, though. If this, I'm still reading it. Does the user want multiple outputs or multiple SBOMs for every single manifest for a given like OCI scan? Can someone?
I'm trying to parse that too. I haven't been
Yeah,
able
so I think right now, I think what the behavior we have today is we copy Docker pull, which is that we match your platform to your actual CPU if we can. And if you pass platform, then we'll pull that one.
Yeah.
And I think it would be really surprising for like Syft reference to Docker things, like not to behave the same as Docker pull reference to Docker things. But maybe they're using stereoscope. But I think Syft is picking the platform and passing it into stereoscope, if I remember correctly.
It is.
And so this might still be true of stereoscope. I tried to dig into this at one point, and I ended up bouncing off the way registry clients implement multi-image manifests, and it decided that falling back to what the Docker CLI does is probably for the best. But I don't remember the details. That was a while ago.
There's one detail here. They referenced OCI dir twice. I wonder if it it works for it, or it's just a problem with OCI dir.
It's not clear to me what would happen there. Like, I don't know what even happens if you save an OCI.
I've got it here. So at Stereoscope, for it, basically under package image of Stereoscope, there's like all the different providers. You can have like OCI, Docker, containerd, etc. Under OCI directory provider, we have this comment. It says, for now, let's only support one image index manifest. It's not clear how to handle multiple manifests. And then we just select the index manifest of 0. So yeah, Alan's exactly at the right spot. If you go to manifest, keep going, keep scrolling, length of 1 greater. It should be line like 62. Yeah, that's what
99.
That's what he changed. Yep. So 58, 56 is where the PR changed kind of what we're doing here. But yeah, we just select for the directory scanner of OCI, we just select the first thing there.
And so what they're doing is iterating on all of them. Is that what you're saying?
It's probably, if I were to read this PR even more carefully, it's probably trying to mimic the behavior of Docker pull, right? Where if you pass in,
right,
like
you
if you
pull in
scan
the list,
directory,
and then it picks one once it's pulled them all, or the full list, right?
yeah,
Look at it.
Right. Like it tries to
PR
your current architecture.
Right. With whichever one of the manifests, matches.
Or respects the platform that you pass in. I mean, I think that's a good, perfectly fine change to add here. Although this particular PR looks like it predates the source refactoring that happened like maybe almost a year ago now.
Yeah, it looks like there was a pending in a loop there. I think maybe we're wrong about that. Anyway,
we're not doing code reviews.
Do we think this is a change we still want to try to bring in and a change we still need?
I think we should take inspiration from the PR since it's been so long, and I'm in favor of updating. If you go to like main on Stereoscope, we're still just pulling position 0 of that manifest list and using that for OCI directory scan. So if you're doing an OCI dir scan and you have a manifest with you have multiple items in the manifest index, then we should behave in the same way that we behave for the Docker image behavior, which is analyze your current architecture of your CPU, see if you can find the manifest that does with that and go with that, or take the one that's explicitly passed.
In Stereoscope, or because I think that's the question, is like Syft is sort of Syft is like an end user tool, right? Like if on the command line I run like Syft Alpine latest, like, and on my Mac it's going to pull ARM64 build of Alpine latest if there is one.
Yeah, I think Stereoscope should accept the answer to the question that Syft provides it. So Syft should either explicitly have it passed by the user or do the analysis on what the architecture is, pass that to Stereoscope, and then Stereoscope uses that information to pull the correct manifest from the index.
But isn't like in the OCI directory, like didn't somebody already like serialize the image out to a file directory and then point Stereoscope at it? Like I guess I'm saying I want to be careful. Like I want to distinguish between. I think Stereoscope should have fewer opinions than Syft, if that makes sense.
I agree.
It also looked like, was there any previous reviewing on that PR?
First reply, you. Oh no,
Alex.
Yeah.
Sorry for delay. Oh, and Alex is asking the same questions that you were asking, Will. How this gets wired up in Syft to Grype and like what the API should look like. Get image from source, which enables automatic resolution. Take additional inputs such as block form. Yeah. So you want the strategy option to be passed to the resolver for the OCI directory, so that if you don't want it to go down the default path, it can just select the thing that the user knows is there. We can create this, but the code path image type traverse. Simple is treating each image in the index independently. Take different dependencies. So I guess. Yeah. So the original author's comment on the PR in his mind, when Syft is run against an OCI directory that has multiple, like a large manifest index, it generates an SBOM per image in an index, being the best approach. So you would get, it's user proof, right? You don't have to pass anything. It doesn't care about your CPU. It doesn't care about the option that you pass. It just generates a ton of SBOMs based on the target for the image.
I mean, it sounds sensible, but I don't know what the guts underneath the impact are.
Well, for what Chris is describing, I think this is something we've avoided doing because it adds like quite a lot of complexity to a lot of different things in strange ways. Like one thing is, okay, you give it the name for the file. Well, what does that become? Like a template, and then you like append some numbers now or something. Like you can't specify each individual one. So we've like had the approach of like just do each individual, command and get each individual thing. I mean, to me, it just seems like we just need to make it, the OCI directory, like honor the platform argument. Syft's already passing that through. They can do that multiple times, get multiple SBOMs, and call it a day without the complexity of like trying to do this multi SBOM thing that we don't really know how to do or do anywhere else.
Right. Because that's the like multi-image manifests are sort of a lie, right? It's just a JSON document with references to images in it, whose creator is assuring you that these images have to do with each other. And so like treating it as a unit is kind of, I don't know, like there's nothing about the world that makes the bytes you get when you do like Docker pull node latest Linux ARM64 and Docker pull node latest Linux AMD64. There's nothing about the world that makes you get related bytes when that happens. So I really agree with Keith. Like Syft should just tell stereoscope which things to scan, and if Syft says all of them, then that's what happens. I think that makes sense, because otherwise we're trying to guess what the user means in an unusual context, right? Or we should let Syft guess what the user means, because Syft is concerned with having like sensible defaults for users and stuff.
Yeah, what Will just said actually really resonates with me, the sensible defaults part. If I'm a new user to Syft and I scan like an OCI directory and I just expect to get an SBOM for the image as it would execute on my computer, and I were to do that and I were to get 6 SBOMs or however many architectures that manifest supports, like that is a confusing situation. Like if I'm like only kiddie pool deep in knowing containers and I just need a scan output for the packages of the thing that I'm trying to look at and run, and I get 6 different documents, I throw my hands up and walk away. It's not, you're throwing someone into the deep end as with that being the default sense.
It also gets weird when we start doing things like piping the output to like something else. Like, what do? Like pipe 6 different things or one at a time serially? And how's Grype going to know what to do with it? Yeah,
you just have to write JQ to filter out to a specific platform that you then can, I mean, it's like, you're just, at some point you're like doing the filtering anyway. So it's like, just do it as part of the scan in a logical way.
I'm very impressed that we made it 54 minutes in before someone mentioned JQ. Well done.
Done. Reset the timer.
Yeah, a remarkable restraint you've all shown today. Okay, so this is, I think we're aiming towards, there is a solution, but it's based on the conversations that we've had on issues and pull requests, but it's not necessarily this solution, but something that will enable people to achieve a similar goal.
Indeed.
The outcome being what?
If I could like wave a magic wand right now, I would take some of the work from this one, link that PR to this original author and say, thank you so much for your contributions. We've decided on this narrow selection of this part of the API of allowing Syft to pass the question or pass the answer of what platform it wants from the manifest to Stereoscope. And we've allowed that to be answered back to Syft from the OCI directory, like implementation here. because then we keep the one-to-one behavior of default. We're not just selecting position 0, and we're mimicking the behavior of the daemon selector across to the OCI directory scanner. And if I just waved my wand and that happened, that would be the first step to this.
Indeed.
Do people agree with that, or is there something I missed from our conversation that we should include in that?
100% agree.
The man makes a lot of sense. Is that something you could articulate in like 3 lines? You know,
I can't write a tweet about it, but I'll respond. Yeah, I can't make it tweet length, but I can respond and get this kind of moving in the right direction.
Which one? I guess it's 175. Is that that's the one where they first reported it, right?
Yeah, and I think the best thing to do here is not to like respond to a year-long issue and like dredge it up at the get-go. I think like if I'm working on open source, I want someone to come to me with like code. So I would come to them, show them the code I've written that's based off theirs, say thank you so much for the contribution. I know this is a year old, but we're going this direction with this narrow scope. Tag Alex to get his review, but only when the code is ready. I'm not going to promise that this is going to get done immediately because I have a lot of other stuff that I'm working on right now on the project board. Yeah,
of course. So we don't touch this right now, or we put a needs discussion, and then when Alex is back, we have a conversation with him, or like, is there an immediate answer, or is it just let's wait until we have time to create?
So not the PR, but I'll write the summary of what we talked about here during the live stream on the issue, and just like say what we're thinking of how to proceed.
Sweet. Teamwork makes the dream work. We are down to the final couple of minutes, so I think we should probably wrap up because I don't think we've got time to pick up another gnarly one like that. Thank you, chaps. As always, this is enlightening, and I learn lots about the archaeology of all these tools and ways in which we can improve them. I'll certainly improve the way we announce the this stream for next week, and improve the output, and probably post it a little bit earlier so people can get a bit prepped. I think that'll help. Maybe the day before. If anyone watching wants to get involved, you can find us anchor.com/open source, and also on our GitHub repo, and also on Discourse. Tomorrow is the big day when we shut down our Slack and shuffle everyone over to Discourse. You can go to anchor.com/discourse, and you'll find this place where you can sign up and have conversations with us and raise issues and topics that you want to talk about. Any final messages before you guys can relax and stop thinking about this stuff?
I feel good about this. That was a solid gardening.
It was a solid bit of gardening. Excellent. All right. Well, have a good rest of your day, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.
Cheers.
Cheerio. Bye.